So thank you all, everybody, for taking time out of your busy week to attend our first webinar for 2025 and a belated 2025 Happy New Year to everybody. I think we're all at the start of the year. We're all kind of thinking, what do we want to do? How do we want to drive our business? And I think this is going to be a very interesting session for you. We have about 50 slides to cover, so I'm going to be going fairly quickly. But I just want to set the stage of what we're going to cover today for you in this webinar, is to talk about how can you transform your current SI business into a recurring revenue or a pay-per-use business, and how Arrosoft can help you on this journey. So we're going to be covering not only the reasons we want to do this and what are the steps to this transformation, but also what are the products and solutions that Arrosoft can bring to you to help you on this transformation journey. Now, first and foremost, we all recognize that the cloud has changed the way our customers buy, all right? So with the advent of when cloud started about 10, 15 years ago, prior to the cloud, everybody was buying CapEx. You were dealing in huge hardware business. Your customers were buying servers, storage from you, right? But as cloud has now grown, we have seen this transform, and customers are now asking not only for pay-per-use services, but they're also asking for how can I get on-premise pay-per-use, okay? So cloud has definitely transformed the way our customers buy, but the reality is that it doesn't just end with cloud. The reality is that today, your customers, even ourselves, all of us in this call, as buyers and users of services, we now expect pay-per-use. So in the past, we used to buy CDs. Now we stream songs on Spotify, we pay per use. We travel with Airbnb, staying in other people's houses, paying per night. And even large hardware companies like Cisco, like HPE, are all transforming into a pay per use business. Now, you have to ask yourself, if even the big boys are going to pay per use, what does that mean for me as an SI that is very entrenched in the CapEx business? So if you're an SI today, still very focused on selling hardware, you are probably looking at these challenges, right? As you go to market, and we talk to many SI partners throughout the world, right? Arrosoft today is present in about 24 different countries, working with partners of all different types. And we hear the same recurring request. Our customers want pay-per-use. We don't know how to do it. So this webinar is really geared to teaching you how do you start on a pay-per-use model, and how do we help you along that journey. So not only do our customers looking at pay-per-use, they also your business is also being impacted by the move to public cloud. And I'll show you some stats later. Public cloud means less on-prem CapEx business for you. And as you go out and fight for that smaller shrinking pie of on-prem CapEx business, your margins are being hit because you have to compete with more players. Even on the software side, many principals, right? Even traditional software players who used to sell perpetual licenses today are moving into a MSP licensing or a subscription style licensing. And that impacts you because your relationships with them don't matter so much anymore. What really matters to help you get discounts is what is your business commit to them. So if you commit less, you get less discounts. You commit more, you get more discounts. Deal reg has become less important. Commitment to the principal has become more important. And for many smaller SIs, that is a huge challenge. How are you going to commit huge amounts compared to the global players like NTT, like the CDWs? How do you commit on the same level with them when your business volume is so much smaller? You can't get the same discount levels. So many SIs today also want to think about how do they move into a recurring revenue business? How do they start their own pay-per-use model? And then they realize that for them to start on this journey to pay-per-use, they have to make the initial CapEx investment. All of the risk now falls to the SI because they are buying the hardware, they are buying the software, they are building the services, and they're selling it on a monthly basis to the customers. And when the customers don't pay, or the customers don't fully consume, or the customers churn and leave the service, then the SI is stuck with all of those investments and it becomes a money losing business. It also becomes very difficult to hire and grow new technical skill sets. So each of these challenges today are what are some of the issues that SIs are facing as they start to explore and look at this pay-per-use model. And this really is where Arrosoft will come in to help you to address all of these concerns. So I'm going to let you take a second look at this slide here. Kind of think about whether these challenges impact you today. And throughout the course of this webinar, I'll tell you how we can help you overcome these hurdles as we go along this journey together. Okay. First and foremost, why should you even be looking at this pay-per-use or recurring revenue business? Why is this happening? And I always like to talk about numbers, right? And of course, in our IT world, no one carries more weight than IDC, right? They are like the Bible of data for IT. What they say generally becomes true. And I have actually been tracking this very particular chart for about 10 years now, all right? So this chart is interesting. It's called the Worldwide Enterprise Infrastructure Buyer Chart. It talks about how are people buying their IT infrastructure. Are they buying it on-prem? Are they buying it in the cloud? And the interesting trend is that when I started tracking this in about 2016, nearly 10 years ago, 80% of IT infrastructure worldwide was deployed on-premise. So 10 years ago, 80% of customers were using on-premise infrastructure. This has steadily declined year on year, largely driven by cloud service adoption and also driven by the customer's urge and need to go into a pay-per-use model and other SIs or other MSPs or service providers coming in to offer that a pay-per-use model to them. So in 2025, we are going to see the purple line is your CAPEX here. That's your on-premise CAPEX here. We're going to see in 2025 that will shrink to below 30%. By 2028, over the next 3 years, your on-premise CAPEX will only be about 25% of what your customers are actually using. The remainder 75% will either be dedicated cloud, meaning on-premise or dedicated pay-per-use, or shared cloud pay-per-use. Angel, can you help me mute whoever is talking, please? Thank you. So why are we still hanging on, fighting for that declining on-premise CAPEX that will eventually shrink to 25% and even lower, and ignoring this pay-per-use on-premise dedicated, off-premise dedicated or shared IT environment, cloud infrastructure? The whole idea of today's webinar is, if nothing else, is how can we help you to grab this 70%, 75%, right? How do we enable you, empower you to give you the services, to teach you on this journey so that you can grow out of this 25% and start to grab the 75%. That is what this entire webinar is all about. That is the entire reason Arrosoft exists, to help you, to help our partners, to give you the technology, the skill sets, and the services to grow and build your own recurring revenue model. All right, that's what we do. So what are the benefits of this recurring revenue business model? Customers are asking for it. If they are not buying it from you, they are buying it from somebody else. And you know this, right? I mean, I'm based in Malaysia. I've been involved in tenders in Malaysia for the last 25, 30 years. And every time nowadays, I see in nearly every tender, we want pay-per-use. We want pay-per-use. It used to be Pay-per-use was an option. Now it's mandatory, right? So if you don't have this offering, you are going to start to get into trouble. The whole idea of growing this your own pay-per-use model is also to protect your accounts. Keep your competitors from going in by eliminating tech refresh tenders. So this is quite interesting, right? All of us in the SI world, and I came from the SI world myself, we go to a customer, we do a big tender, and then see you later, I'll talk to you in 3 years when it's time for renewal, right? But in that 3 years, when it's time for renewal, customer will throw out another tender, and that tender becomes a chance for our competitors to go in to win that tender and kick us out. The power of recurring revenue business is once you get in there and you provide that pay-per-use service, there's no more ever a need for tech refresh tender. That account is yours. Unless you screw up, if the customer is happy with your service, they just continue. There's no need to refresh. It locks out your competitors. It increases your customer stickiness because now you provide more value add through your services. Not just a product that anybody can sell, but really customers become used to your service, used to your people, and they stick with you throughout. So this pay-per-use business really helps you to take back control of your account, not only from your competitors, but also from the principals. We've always seen, right? I'm an incumbent. Now it's time for a tender. I expect to be protected, but somehow, some way, your competitor has a better relationship with your principal and they get the best price. It happens. We have all seen it. Pay-per-use model, recurring revenue business model eliminates that entirely. All right. And also, very importantly, to build a predictable revenue stream that only goes up. So you're thinking, Eric, what do you mean by that? How do I build a predictable revenue stream that only goes up? Let me show you. So you think about your SI business today. The way that you sell hardware. You do a project, you get a PO, and when you have a PO for that month, let's say I have a 150K PO, I have revenue. If next month I don't win any projects and there's no tender, my revenue drops to zero. Then maybe in another month I get 100K revenue, it goes up. So the reality is that the SI CAPEX business that's dependent on projects is actually up and down. It's very irregular, depending on the size of the deal that you have that month and whether you have a PO or not. That's very bad because on the month that you don't have a PO, maybe how do you pay salary? How do you keep the lights on? The whole idea of a monthly recurring revenue business is to build a sustainable revenue that only keeps going up. And even if you stop selling, it maintains flat, right? It never goes down. So this is an example of an SI that we work with in the Philippines. They are an SI. They are a huge storage and server seller. And a few years ago, they started on their recurring revenue journey. And I won't say it's perfect. It takes time. So in the first month, they had $3,000 recurring revenue. That's tiny, right? $3,000. What am I going to do with $3,000? But in the second month, that 3,000 remained, and the same customer now increased it to 7,000. Okay? So the same customer grew. In the third month, they added 2 customers, and the same customer remained flat, but they added 2 customers. Then it jumped to 18,000. So through adding customers and through growing existing customers, over 18 months, they grew their recurring revenue from $3,000 a month to $170,000 a month. So just imagine this, right? At this point, every month you are guaranteed revenue of 170K. If you stop any new selling, you don't have any more new customers, it will still maintain 170K throughout, unless you lose the customer. So that's the power of recurring revenue. It's very, very predictable, right? It really drives your business on an upward trajectory that never goes down. And you will see here, every customer just increases. And think about this. This is a very interesting fact. They are doing $170,000 a month with only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 customers. A dozen customers contributes 170,000 US dollars a month. How many customers do you need to maintain to achieve a revenue of 170 times 12 over 2 million US dollars? Think about that. Okay. So that's the reason why we want to help you drive a monthly recurring revenue. So to do that, you have to transform, and transformation means you cannot keep doing the same things and expecting different results. So Arrosoft, we started out also as an SI company. We were actually a services SI, helping our customers do large projects in backup and recovery, where we provided the software licenses and the services, right? Back in 2014. And it was a successful business. We had some very large customers, right? $21 billion customer, $3 billion customer. We were making good money. But over the years, what we found was that the revenue was unpredictable. It goes up and down. And on a bad month, we still have to pay salary. We still have to maintain the headcount. We cannot fire people. And chasing large deals was very stressful. All of you here know that. It comes time for a tender, time for revenue review, start of the year. Like now, start of the year, we're all at zero, right? Zero revenue. I'm worried about how do I make it up over the rest of the year. So our bosses decided that there has to be a different way. In 2018, we started our transformation into a recurring revenue or pay-per-use model. And we didn't start with a lot of products. We started only with 2 or 3 products focused around backup and recovery. So we started with Commvault as our big partner. And Commvault, because of our relationship with them, we started in our first year alone, Commvault business was about 650,000 annual recurring revenue. So in 1 year, our first year of this transformation, with one product, we made 650,000 US dollars in that year. And we were still having our old contracts as well, right? So we know this works. So what we did over the following years was to really embark on portfolio growth. We already had Commvault, we added Veeam, we added Acronis, Druva added us and made us their MSP aggregator for US. And in that, over the period of 2 years, we grew from 650K per year to 2.5 million per year. Now we have expanded into much more services. We have cloud services, security services. Our team has grown to nearly 70 team members globally. I'm still hiring over here in ASEAN, right? We support 20 over countries, and we are seeing over 50% year-on-year growth. Now think about it. How many of you today in your SI CAPEX business can still see 50% year-on-year growth? So what we're trying to tell you is that we're not speaking to you from a position of, oh, I have this product, I want to sell it to you. No. We are saying that we have gone through this very same journey. We have started in the same position as you. Where we are today, we know this model works. And it's our, I would say, mission. The Arrosoft mission is really to see and help our SI partners throughout the world go on this journey and to make this journey successful as well. So how do we do that? What are the 5 steps to transformation? First and foremost, you really have to rethink how you go to market. You cannot be successful in pay-per-use if you are still calling yourself a SI reseller. You have to change into a service provider mindset. And this is probably the most difficult part of the transformation. How do I change the way I think about myself? We have seen many SIs start this journey and stall and stop halfway because they cannot get over the fact that they are trying to now change to be a service provider. They are still in the mindset of chasing the tenders, chasing the POs, right? In the service provider model, we also have to sell outcomes, not products. This is also a very big transformation. For SIs today, you are going forward to your customer with your product's brand. Oh, I sell Dell. I sell HP. I sell Cisco. I sell Commvault. I sell Veeam. And the problem with that is your customer can buy those same brands from any other SI. You're not the only one. But when you start to sell outcomes, you start to sell service levels, you start to sell services, that becomes your brand. I'll give you an example. You will hear throughout the presentation the different solutions that we sell. But when we talk to a customer, we actually don't talk about Veeam Commvault. We talk about backup as a service. Mr. Customer, you don't care what software that I use. I will guarantee you these service levels. I will guarantee you these capabilities. I will guarantee you these outcomes. What product that I use should not be important to you. The same way that you go to AWS and you get 6 cores of compute, you get 32 gigs of RAM, you don't care what is the brand of hardware that is inside the AWS cloud. To have this outcome, we have to servicify everything, turn everything that we do into a service. And it will not be overnight. So obviously, one of the big challenges as a business owner today in the SI business, you have to balance how much of SI do I do, how much of services do I do, and how do I bring one up while the other shrinks without impacting the overall revenue of the company. That is one of the challenges. We're here to help you. We also see a lot of times this transformation fail because SI business owners don't transform their compensation to their sales because compensation drives sales behavior. I'll give you an example. If you are a SI business owner and you want to drive managed services, you cannot measure your salespeople on what is their quarterly revenue. I mean, you can't measure them only on their CAPEX or PO revenue because service revenue, pay-per-use revenue tends to be long-term, right? It's not all in one PO over 5 years. So the compensation really has to change and the SI business owner has to think about that. And of course, you also need to look for new vendor relationships that have MSP programs or vendors that provide zero CAPEX to really help you to start and reduce the risk of you getting into this pay-per-use business. The good news is, for number 5, that's where Arrosoft comes in to help you. We have done this work. We have collected, we have, curated the list of all of the relevant vendors in the areas that we play, which is data protection, which is security, which is cloud infrastructure. And we have collected this list of vendors that are providing these in the lowest risk, best outcome kind of manner. So how does Arrosoft really help you in your transformation? How do we empower you? First and foremost, we empower our SI partners to move into the recurring revenue business and to do it in a way with no risk. So we do not require CAPEX from you. And I will show you some examples later how we even give you hardware without CAPEX, without you buying the hardware. You don't need to have leasing. We don't want you to get locked down to long-term leasing agreements. Basically, working with Arrosoft to start your recurring revenue business transformation should be zero risk. You don't carry the risk. Arrosoft carries the risk for you. Okay? And like I said earlier, what do we want to offer in this recurring revenue business? We want to servicify everything. But rather than to let you think about or let you figure out how to servicify, we have done that thinking for you. So what we can offer you are the following outcomes: VMs and compute services, storage services, data protection through backup as a service, disaster recovery as a service, ransomware protection as a service, cybersecurity as a service, and endpoint protection as a service. Now, if you think about it, right, if you really look down to each of these different offerings, what do they really address in your customer? They address your laptop and desktop sales. They address your server and storage sales. And they address your security and data protection and business continuity. Just in this short portfolio, you can address nearly 100% of the infrastructure requirements of your customer. So if today you are only a laptop reseller and you're very strong here, it opens the door to you into the data center. If today you're only selling server and storage, this opens the door into data protection, into cybersecurity, into ransom protection. The whole idea is that with whatever entry point you currently have in your customer, we expand that with all of these new and exciting services that you can bring into your customer. Of course, and especially here in the ASEAN region, we always have to be price competitive. And the way we do that in Arrosoft is we have taken our global business volume. We have committed to all of the vendors that provide all of these different offerings so that we get the best discounts and we pass those discounts back to you. So if you only look at your SI business and your customer set, there's no way you will be able to commit the kind of volume that we commit to the principals on a global scale. And those exciting discounts we pass back to you. So that's how we help you to increase not only your revenue, but also your profitability is through our MSP license aggregation program. And the last, and I guess probably the most important challenge that our customers face is, hey, Eric, I like this. It sounds exciting, but do I have to build a team? If my team is only currently doing server and storage, and I don't know anything about cybersecurity, how do I get into this business? Or if my team is only knowledgeable about endpoints, how do I get into this cloud business or VMs and storage business? That's where the Arrosoft secret sauce comes in, right? We provide the end-to-end services to you. More importantly, we work behind you so that it is your name fronting to the customer. We do this for many SIs today. Here's a list of some of the SIs that we work with. Sorry, I shouldn't call them SIs anymore. They started out as SIs, but working through us, they are now become service providers. And for many of these service providers, even though it's their brand on the website, their brand to their customer, a lot of times it's actually an Arrosoft engineer and Arrosoft capability behind them, right? So the reason why you don't hear much about Arrosoft is because we don't sell to the customer. We work through you and you put it as your brand to the customer. So many of these brands, for example, this one here, DigiWin, they offer nearly our full suite of solutions. All of this stuff that you see up here is actually offered by DigiWin under the DigiWin brand, but it's all offered behind them by Arrosoft. DigiWin don't buy anything, they don't pay for anything, they don't hire any people. Arrosoft does all the work for them. That's what we want to bring to you, okay? So what are the services that we can enable you to sell? For example, today you might already be doing hardware sales, whether it's servers, storage, network, you might be doing laptop sales, and you probably have some kind of professional services add-on to support your hardware sales. What we want to do is to give you a wider portfolio that is built around services and consumed by your customer in a pay-per-use manner. We can provide cloud and compute services and cloud storage services. We can provide data protection through data backup and disaster recovery services. And we can provide cybersecurity through ransomware protection and cybersecurity as a service. Now, the way that we have designed this portfolio is really to make it as exciting and as relevant to your customers as possible, right? If you think about it, there really is no customer today who is not looking at moving some kind of infrastructure to the cloud. Everybody is worried about disaster recovery, about data backup, especially nowadays in this era of ransomware, of ransomware attacks. And of course, to bring in very exciting and sometimes unique offerings like our ransomware protection service and cybersecurity as a service. Any single one of these could be a simple entry point to your customer to really help you stand out away from your competitors. Okay? And we'll talk a bit about How do we enable each one of these for you in a very high level in the coming slides? Okay, we'll give you an overview. All right. I'm not going to go into too deep because we don't really have that much time. So we've also kind of thought about how should you go to market? How should you launch this? So like I said, right, Arrosoft job is to make this transformation as simple as possible for you. Take out the risk, take out the uncertainty, take out the thinking process, create a formula for you that we know works, because not only have we done it, we have helped many partners around the world do this. So first and foremost, we want to help you to establish your brand, your MSP brand, your new pay-per-use, your new services brand. To do this, we actually are going to target some low-hanging fruits. Many customers try to start their pay-per-use service with compute, targeting the production workloads. I'm sorry, that's the wrong way to go, right? If you think of yourself as a new brand, new in the market, no track record, which customer will give you their production workloads? So we always recommend to start at the lower level, look at their tier 2, tier 3, their backup, their disaster recovery. Sorry, their backup and their secondary storage requirements. So when we start the business, if you follow this plan, and you don't need to follow this plan, you can do other things. You can customize it as well. If you follow the plan, we always recommend that you start with storage as a service, and even that for tier 2 storage, which is your object and your file storage, because that's not so business critical. Start up, add on backup as a service, because everybody needs backup. And of course, ransomware protection is something that's very new in the market. Not many people have heard of this. This is a great time to have that conversation. And we can talk about cybersecurity through attack surface management. Okay. Now, in the first 1 or 2 years, in phase 1, if you have started now successfully, you have some customers, your name is out there. Now we go into phase 2, where we can now grow and look at the production workloads. This is where we add compute as a service for you. We add web services, we add disaster recovery as a service, we add block storage, and we add cloud migration services. So in phase 2, we now look at more of the compute side of the business and how do we take on the production workloads. Because at this stage, you're an already established service provider brand in the market. And then in phase 3, of course, we add on the really sexy, cool latest stuff like virtual desktop, Kubernetes, GPU as a service. So imagine, right, this platform that we want to build together with you can actually start small and grow all the way into advanced services. Let me show you how that looks like on a stack. So in phase 1, the light blue boxes, we want to start off with this stack of solutions that we talked about earlier, comprising storage, backup, ransomware protection, and attack surface management for cybersecurity. Once this is established, we then add on compute. And now with compute, I can do disaster recovery, and I can do cloud migration and DR. So this is all in phase 2. Once we have this solid foundation, we have storage and compute, we can add on additional services like virtual desktop, Kubernetes, NVIDIA GPUs. And all of these can be done today through all of the solutions that Arrosoft carries. We can provide the storage and compute to you even with zero CapEx, meaning we will deliver the hardware into your data center where you will sell it as your infrastructure, but you don't have to buy the hardware. Even the NVIDIA GPU, you don't have to buy. We will, as a service to you, you will as a service to your customer. What's most important about this is on the first PO, you are making money. You have no risk. You're not buying any hardware. You don't have to amortize the cost of any hardware. You don't have to think about the rate cards. All of that will be provided for you. All right. And of course, once we get to this stage, then if the customers want AI, IoT, other applications, guess what? Arrosoft are also building our portfolio in this area to help our partners grow to the next level. Okay. So this is the stack that we want to help you build up, but we have to start somewhere. We have to start small, and we always recommend that you start with the storage first, and we'll get into that. So if you look at how do we map our services to our customer set, we've also done that for you, right? Including things like from consumer device backup and cloud storage all the way to government level. We have solutions that can help you to address all of these different needs. And we do that with our partners throughout the world. So with that, let me just kind of get into a bit more details. You've kind of heard the high level now. You kind of have seen, okay, this is how Arrosoft can help me. These are the different solutions they can help me with. How do we start this journey? What do I need to do, right? What does Arrosoft actually put into my data center to help me start this journey? So in phase one, as we talk about storage as a service, you can already imagine that storage is going to be fairly expensive, right? How do we enable our partner to start a storage as a service offering where they don't have to buy the storage hardware? That's where we come in. So we work with a brand called Zadara. Zadara storage is an enterprise class storage that is consumed the same way that you consume AWS storage. So it's on a per days per gig, right? And that storage now is actually located in your data center where you sell it as your own brand of cloud storage services, but you don't have to pay for the hardware. So Zadara is unique because it can take any kind of media, whether it's normal spinning drives, SSD, or NVMe, and present it out as any kind of storage. We call this a universal storage platform. So you can see here, they can provide block storage services, they can provide file storage services, they can provide object storage services. So this means that with this, in phase one, you can address all of the secondary storage requirements your customer may have. For example, they may need cloud storage archiving. They can archive to object storage in your cloud. They may need file share repositories. They can do that from your cloud offering a file share service so that they don't have to maintain their own file server. All that can be done through Zadara, okay? And of course, for future growth, we can also do block storage. How do we enable this? Eric, you're telling me that you can enable this in my data center and I don't have to buy the hardware. How does that work? So what we will do is on day one, we will actually move in new hardware into your DC. And this is what the hardware looks like, right? There will be these storage nodes. There will be these data switches. There will be these management switches. And all of this equipment will be moved into your data center. You don't have to buy the hardware. You only need to sell it out as pay-per-use. And you control the users coming in into your own network, and you do it as your own cloud brand. And when we move this infrastructure into your data center, not only do we provide the hardware, we provide the self-service catalog and portal, so users can go in and subscribe to their own storage services in a cloud-based manner, the same way that they would use in AWS. And they can do this on their own, right? The service catalogs will all be built for you. And you can even white label this to put your own logo on the website, on the portal, so that people think that it's your cloud service. We provide all the back-end tools, including the orchestration, the management platform, the chargeback, and the billing engine, hypervisor, where compute is relevant. We provide a hypervisor, and we provide the 24/7 monitoring and management. So in this case, for you to start a cloud service selling storage, you actually have to buy nothing. You actually have to install nothing. You actually have to train no people, because all of this will be fully managed for you. So think about that, right? It's a game changer. Dell Apex doesn't do this. HP GreenLake doesn't do this. HP GreenLake, Dell Apex, all of the leasing programs let you have the hardware, but you need to figure out how to put them together, how to build a portal, what's my rate card, so I don't lose money, and how do I manage them. With Arrosoft and Zadara, everything end-to-end is taken care of. You just go out and sell, and you make money, you make a profit on your first PO, right? Zero risk. That's what we're talking about when we work at Arrosoft. And of course, the product has to be good. It has to have the enterprise features that we are accustomed to, right? That our customers expect. So it provides block and file and object. It provides dedupe. It provides all flash. It provides SSD. We can do team provisioning. We can do large volume sizes for large customers. It supports all of the major storage protocols. It provides multi-zone HA or stretch clusters or metro clusters, depending on what term that you're familiar with. And because we have designed this to be a service provider platform, it is designed to be zero downtime. So whether we are updating the software, whether we're changing the software, whether we are adding additional capacity or removing capacity, or even whether we are doing a full hardware tech refresh where we are replacing all the hardware, the Zadara Z storage requires zero downtime. If you think about it, how can you ask for downtime if you have 200 customers relying on you for storage all the time? So we have designed this platform to be zero downtime, non-disruptive upgrades. Oh, and I just mentioned tech refresh just now, right? Think about what if Arrosoft can give you new hardware every 4 to 5 years, zero downtime, you don't pay for it. As long as you keep using, your customers keep using, Arrosoft and Zadara will come in to refresh the hardware for you to ensure you always have the latest, the greatest, and the fastest. That's what we do with the service, right? We can do remote mirroring to different Zadara cloud sites. If you're interested to find out how does this work, we can do a Zadara demo for you. Of course, we have the support clustering, and data at rest and data in flight are all fully encrypted. So security is very important for these cloud-based platforms. This MSP platforms. In fact, Zadara today is already ISO certified, SOC 1, SOC 2 certified. So you don't even have to think about how do you certify the platform. So how does Zadara Z storage work, right? It's a very unique technology. Now think about all of these servers up here. These are your storage nodes. These are these storage nodes here. So there are 2 here. In this example, there are 6 storage nodes, and each of the storage nodes have drives. So what we'll do is we'll create unique partitions called VPSAs, or virtual private storage arrays. And each VPSA is dedicated to one tenant only, or even to one application only. So in each VPSA, there will be dedicated hard drives, dedicated CPU cores, and dedicated RAM. So Zadara have created what we call a share nothing environment. I can create a virtual SAN called a VPSA, and like my real SAN, it has dedicated drives, dedicated controllers with dedicated CPU and RAM. And I can keep, and each VPSA can either be block, file, or object. And so each VPSA is dedicated to one tenant. They have full privacy, no drive sharing. If Bank Negara or your central bank wants to audit and find out which bank's data are sitting on which drive, we can actually identify these 4 drives are going into bank A because this VPSA is private to that bank. There's no sharing. No other cloud service can do this. All right. So we will just create VPSAs, and if you run out of space, you run out of drives, Arrosoft will ship in more storage nodes, grow your drives, and you just keep creating it that way. So this really drives the model of starting small and growing big, and Arrosoft will help you grow in that manner. Of course, security is very important. So Zadara has to have encryption of data in flight and at rest using AES 256, and also has all of these compliance already done. So it's very, very a secure platform. And of course, with a cloud service, your customers can go into the portal, The portal will have your logo. They can manage their own resources. And Arrosoft and Zadara will manage this for you. So Zadara will commit a 5 nines uptime guarantee. And in a month that we don't meet that 5 nines, you actually don't need to pay. And Zadara and Arrosoft team will monitor the environment, alert you if there's any issues, and help you fix those issues as well. So think about it. Now that you want to start the cloud service, you can do so without even needing to hire people, because there is a back end helping you to monitor, maintain, and operate this on a 24/7 manner, right? Reacting to problems before the problems occur and alerting you if there's any kind of issues that need your attention. For example, usage is very high, we need to ship you new drives, or, you have certain performance problems, we will alert you. So once we have that storage set up, that should not be the end of it, right? Now, if you talk to pure play hardware companies, they're only interested in selling you the hardware. If you talk to pure play software companies, they don't care about hardware, they don't want you to sell the software. What we do in Arrosoft really is to think about the end-to-end for you, right? So now that you have the hardware, what else can we add on top of the hardware to drive the hardware consumption and give you more services to sell? And one of the things that we do very well, in fact, the company was founded on this service, is backup. So we want to so once you have the hardware, you have the storage there, we want to add on the backup as a service. And we do that in a manner by putting the storage into your cloud DC and creating a backup as a service environment in your cloud DC. And from this cloud DC, now you can ingest backups or secondary copies from your customers' on-prem environment. So customers are always talking about, how do I do cloud backup? Well, this is how you do cloud backup, right? You can back up from your customers' own data center into your branded cloud bus, or even from the customer's own public cloud environment, whether it's their M365, it's their Google, it's their AWS, into your cloud bus. So if you think about it, if I want to back up my customer's environment, maybe customer A has Veeam, I've got to use Veeam here. Maybe customer B has Commvault, I've got to have Commvault here. And that's where the Arrosoft relationship with our vendors really enhance the way that you go to market. If you are a Veeam reseller today, you probably get great price from Veeam. You go to Commvault, Commvault will say, well, you're a competitor, and I'm not going to give you my best price, right? The way that Arrosoft works is, because we have this huge global volume with all of the backup vendors, we already have the best price. For many of these brands, like Veeam, we are one of the highest contract commits in ASEAN, in Asia, in fact. For Commvault, we are probably the second cheapest price in the world. We have huge contracts with Druva, with Acronis, and others. These discounts now we pass back to you, so that not only will you be competitively priced, but now you can build multiple different cloud bus environments. If you need Veeam, we can build Veeam for you. If you need Commvault, we can build Commvault for you. You need Acronis, we can build Acronis for you. All under your brand umbrella, being owned by you, but operated jointly together with Arrosoft to provide you all the different skill sets that you need, right? Or if your customer wants to have an on-site bus that is dedicated to them inside their own data center, we can also help you to do that. So some of you are probably thinking, well, I can do backup. What's so special about backup, right? How can Arrosoft help me differentiate something that is as normal, as unsexy as backup, to help me stand out from my competitors? So let me show you, right? So we'll get to, so let me show you in just a short while. So we have actually built up a huge backup portfolio covering majority of the key backup services. And as I said earlier, we can provide all these different brands to you at very, very exciting prices. And not only just the licenses, but to have the people, the services, the best practice to support all of them, so that your backup environment really becomes the best compared to your competitors. So what are those differentiators, right? For example, we talked about all this. I'm going to skip some of these slides, all right? So what are those differentiators? What are the areas of advantage? So first and foremost, backup was the platform that the company was founded on. We have been doing backup for over 10 years now. Our largest customer is 30,000 endpoints in the US that we back up. We back up a lot of banks. So what we've done is, over the years, we've refined our process. We are very familiar with heterogeneous backup environments, meaning running different brands in the same environment. And what we do is we bring all of those best practices, the SOPs that we have designed for that 30,000 customer endpoint customer, we bring those best practices to you and to your customers regardless of their size. What does that mean really? What are in those best practices? For example, upgrades and updates, they are pretty common. We do health check analysis and security audits. And this is something that not many people know how to do. We have developed tools that actually go out and collect security configuration and data, audit them to make sure that they meet the recommendations of the vendors so that your environment is as well protected as it can be. And then we perform capacity planning, monthly and quarterly reports, incident report readiness, and we also perform regular restore testing, DR testing, DC testing, disaster recovery testing, ransomware recovery testing. So all of these is basically designed not to ensure that not only is the data being backed up, but it is backed up in the most secure environment that malwares, that cyber attackers cannot attack, and then to also ensure that we are regularly testing the environment to make sure that the data can be restored when you need it to. So this is basically a portfolio of the different levels of our managed backup and backup as a service offerings that we have. I won't go through all of them, right? But these 5 different tiers cover basically our MSP aggregator support. Support meaning you only get the license from Arrosoft, and the operations and infrastructure are still managed by your customer. And then as a part of the license, we provide the MSP aggregator support to support the product. The next level is what we call the co-managed backup, where we work together with the customer's team to manage the backup environment. The environment is still owned by the customer. The operations are jointly performed by Arrosoft and the customer's own backup team, co-managed. Then we have the fully managed, where the customer still owns the infrastructure, but all of the work is done by the Arrosoft engineers following our best practices, our SOPs, with all of the audits, health checks, everything done. Okay? And the last but not least is our backup as a service, which is basically Arrosoft provides everything. We provide the hardware, we provide the software, we provide the services. Customer only sends the data. So depending on what your customer requires, depending on which level your customer is comfortable with, we have an offering that can help them in that meet their requirements. Now, once the backup is done, right, we can also talk about additional things. For example, ransomware protection and attack surface management. For ransomware protection, so these 2 areas are part of our 360-degree defense strategy, where we actually have created a multi-tier, multi-layer defense platform using different kinds of industry solutions to provide the best possible protection against ransomware. So we have 4 different solutions here, but for this phase 2, we're going to talk about recover using Arrosoft AirGap. Yes, this is an Arrosoft branded software that we created on our own, and also Arctic Security early warning service. So now that you have your customers' backups in your environment, you obviously want to protect them the best that you can, right? And we know today, according to Veeam, 90% of ransomware attacks also look for and target the backups. And you have heard this all the time. I was ransomware, my backups were destroyed, right? So what we have done is we have created our own platform to enable what we call 3211 backup rule. So the 3211 backup rule states that to have the best protection against ransomware or any kind of situation, you have to have 3 copies of data on 2 different media. 1 copy must be immutable and 1 copy must be offline for air gap. Now think about this for a minute. As you are backing up to disk, as you are backing up to cloud, how do you offline and air gap your disk storage or your cloud? This is a challenge that many customers face today, and that is something that we have done in Arrosoft. So Arrosoft Air Gap basically integrates with the customer's existing backup. It keeps an extra copy of the data, and the whole idea of Air Gap is to keep the data, that particular copy, hidden from the attackers. And it does this by removing the backup storage from the network, reconnecting when there's backup that needs to be done, and removing it again when there's no backup to be done. It also protects the backup database, and we also implant AI sensors to know when an attack is going on so that we can actively lock away the air gap copy. Let me show you how this works, right? So you have your servers, your data being backed up into your primary backup copy, and your primary backup copy now pushes a copy of data to your secondary site. Very normal, everybody has this. The problem that starts to occur is that if you're being attacked, the production data has now been encrypted. Backup will continue to back up that encrypted, corrupted data into your first copy. Now you have corrupted data here. Backup will push the corrupted data to your second copy, and now you have corrupted data here. So backup software, just by doing the job it's supposed to do, has helped to move corrupted data into all of your data repositories. What we want to do is we want to stop that. So we put something in between called the air gap appliance, is a virtual appliance, to control what can go in and when it can go in into this air gap vault. We want to turn this second copy into a vault, and by vault we mean we want to keep the data in there secure and clean. So air gap will decide when to take the data and when not to take the data, and we will implant sensors into the production data to monitor whether the data has been attacked. And if it notices an attack, air gap will actively lock the air gap vault so that the data inside here, firstly, cannot be found, cannot be hacked, cannot be attacked. And secondly, the sensors will ensure that no corrupted data goes into the air gap vault. So this air gap ransomware protection as a service becomes an additional service you can now sell on top of your backup as a service to get even more revenue from your customers, right? Then we also talk about early warning service. So early warning service is quite interesting. It's from a company called Arctic Security. And think of early warning service as your external network security guard, constantly watching your network from the public side and probing you for vulnerabilities. And if it finds a vulnerability, it will inform you so that you can fix the vulnerability. Think of this like a pen test, but it is a pen test that runs 24/7, powered by a cloud-based service. So there's nothing to install inside your server, right? Nothing to install inside your network. It basically tells you what you are presenting to the public internet. If you are presenting a vulnerability that a hacker can take advantage of, it will alert you. And it will also monitor dark web for you to check and make sure whether you have any kind of usernames, passwords, cookies that have been leaked that could be used to enter your network. All right. So this is an example of a customer that we did a few years ago. Now, this customer is in the financial sector. They're actually regulated by central bank. I won't say which country they are, right? And when we went inside, we actually discovered 7 high severity issues. And when we double click on these 7 high severity issues, we actually found that they had 5 Active Directory servers that were exposed to public internet. These are hidden because they're actual public IP addresses. So there are five AD servers that were exposed to public internet, and we know that should not be, right? And we also found that they had two servers already with malware installed on it, because we detected software inside these two servers that were communicating with a known hacker IP. So imagine, right? We walk into a customer, they don't know us, we don't know them. We do a free report for them, and we can do a free report for your customer. And straight away, we discover for them, hey, you already have all these vulnerabilities that you didn't know about. That is what Arctic Security EWS does. And it's a great way for you to add on some form of cybersecurity without needing to compete against the other players that are already in the network. Many SIs sell network security, firewalls, entry intrusion, EDR, antivirus. Arctic EWS is so unique, so special. It's a very easy way for you to start a conversation and to get you into the door. And you don't have to do anything. You don't have to install anything. You don't have to hire anybody, because it's all already done for you as a cloud service. Okay. So once we have phase one done, now we have things like storage, we have things like backup, we have ransomware protection, we have Arctic security to monitor the external perimeter of the network. And by this time, you should be a fairly established services brand in the market. Now we can talk about how do we take on the production workloads of our customers. Now we can add compute as a service and cloud VR as well. So to do that, again, we go back to the Zadara platform. Earlier, we had the Zadara storage. Now we add the Zadara compute. And to do that is very simple. The same infrastructure, we just add additional infrastructure. So investment protection, what you have before, continue to use, add in new infrastructure and grow the services that you can now sell to your customers. So we can sell VMs now, and Zadara VM is unique in the sense that just like in the cloud, you buy based on core, you buy based on RAM, but now it is done inside your data center. So the customers can actually consume your cloud compute the same way they consume AWS. And Zadara is actually AWS compatible. So any customers who are already using AWS would find Zadara very easy to use. Same APIs, same Terraform, same scripts. And if they're complaining about AWS being too expensive, Zadara is a lot more cost effective than AWS. So sometimes we hear this term called cloud repatriation. It refers to customers who have gone to the cloud, used the cloud for a few years. They have realized that cloud can be very expensive. Not only are the infra more expensive, but there's a lot of hidden network and data transfer charges, and they're looking to come back to on-premise. This could be that on-premise, that in-country cloud service that is AWS compatible, lower cost than AWS, and does not have data egress or network charges to help the customer save even more money. So as you can see, when we curate our solutions, when we select the brands to work with, we actually have thought about all of these long-term capabilities to help you make these solutions easier to sell. Okay. So again, using Zadara Compute is just like using AWS Compute. The user interface is very familiar. You just select based on the CPU and the RAM that you want to use. And of course, to help our customers get into your cloud, we have created our own tool called Cloud Any. So earlier you heard of our own software called Arrosoft AirGap, which is basically ransomware protection, because when we created AirGap, nobody knew anything about ransomware protection. There were no solutions in the market, so we created it. Now, as more and more customers are looking to migrate to cloud, it could be migrating into your cloud, it could be migrating VMware to cloud or VMware to another platform. We created this software called Arrosoft Cloud Any to really make this migration seamless and easy to do. And today, Arrosoft Cloud Any supports all of these different platforms, including cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, OCI, Huawei, Google, as well as on-premise platforms like VMware, OpenStack, Zadara, vStack, Virtuoso is the new one that we haven't added yet, right? So regardless of how and where your customer wants to move, Cloud Any really is designed to be that migration and disaster recovery tool. So Cloud Any provides not only migration, but also DR. So think about this now. With this DR capability, what if my customer has on-premise VMware and they don't have disaster recovery, and then you convince them to take DR inside your cloud service? So earlier you have built the Zadara compute cloud. Now we build the disaster recovery use case. Customer can continue to use their VMware on-premise and using Cloud Any DR into your cloud. So if anything goes wrong, you can spin up the VM in your cloud. So not only does Arrosoft talk about what is the best platform, is how do we build additional use cases so that you can sell even more compute, so that you can sell even more storage. That's the kind of end-to-end thinking that Arrosoft has put into this whole strategy for you, right? And of course, doing it with Cloud Any is a lot faster than using the traditional backup and restore method. We have done our own testing and we have found Cloud Any to be 350% faster in terms of migration from one platform to another platform. And this is interesting. So we talked about building that DR as a service. So if you think about it today, right, many customers who want DR, they probably have to pay for very expensive active solutions, or their applications have to have specific disaster recovery or business continuity capabilities that are built in. And these tend to be for very expensive ERP, CRM, business critical apps. And for everything else, they have to rely on backup, right? Anything goes wrong, they have to rebuild the VMs, they have to restore from the backup. But the reality is that backup takes a long time. You really can't build any meaningful DR process when your RPO and your data loss is 24 hours and your downtime is measured in hours, if not days. So Cloud Any comes in to create that disaster recovery use case where the customer can DR into your cloud and you can provide an RTO of around 15 minutes at a very low cost. So anything goes wrong, you can restore and get them back up and running in a matter of minutes rather than hours and days. Okay? And this is again a very, I would say, easy use case to convince your customers to sell. So we have come to the end of the webinar. I know I'm a little bit over time, and I know we covered a lot of information, and I kind of went very high level on all of the different services because each of those services could be an hour presentation in itself. I just kind of want to summarize today's webinar before we start the Q&A, is that if you are interested to really transform your business in this new year, to look at how can you meet the declining on-prem CapEx business that you're facing now, you really need to transform into a recurring revenue model, okay? The best way to do that is to leverage services, in particular, managed services, so that it's your name front and center, and you create that customer relevance and stickiness. And Arrosoft comes in to help you by providing you the thinking, the platform, the strategy already done up for you. So we always recommend to start with the low-hanging fruits, start with the secondary storage, start with the security use cases like we talked about, ransomware protection as a service, we talked about Arctic security, right? And these are not only designed to help you quickly start and make money, but also to give you stories that are different from your competitors. For example, no one's talking about ransomware protection as a service. No one's talking about 24/7 pen test as a service, right? That gives you that differentiator. And once that brand is established, maybe over the next 2-3 years, then we go into the production workloads and we introduce the cloud compute, and then we can start doing disaster recovery as a service. Now, this is just a plan that we have seen work. You may want to start from other angle first, because maybe you have a compute customer that is ready to go with you, and you want to start with compute, and that's completely possible. The bottom line is that Arrosoft is here to help. This is our core. This is what we do. It's our job to help our SI partners be successful, not only in starting their recurring revenue business or their pay-per-use business, but to ensure that they have successful new solutions, new services added on over the next, 5, 8, 10 years, so that they are constantly growing that service portfolio, so that when their CapEx project business, their on-premise business starts to drop, their managed service, their pay-per-use business is constantly going up, and over time will even surpass the CapEx on-premise business. So if you have any questions, you have any interest in what we have just shared with you, do reach out to us, do reach out to your Arrosoft sales team members. We have people like Kok Leong, people like Ronson on this call today. And thank you so much. That's the end of my presentation. And I think we can go into Q&A right now.
Okay, thank you, Eric. We actually have one Q&A question here. So
Sure.
Understanding that servicify the business is likely to be the better direction moving forward, but when customers have their own IT person or manager, they would intervene by asking what brands or models, or some would even request for specific brands and models. How would you tackle this situation?
That's a very good question. You're right. If the customer still has a hardware preference, for example, we have seen customers that tell us, I like this whole idea of pay-per-use infrastructure on my own premise, but I need it to be on Dell hardware. I need to have this. I need to have this. The answer is yes, we can do that as well, right? But the reality is that we see this, I would say, objection a lot less over the last 2 years. Majority of customers today actually don't care. As long as you give them that service level that they want, and you commit to them that service level, a lot of times they don't care anymore. And that's because they've become more and more used to using cloud services, where the cloud actually doesn't even expose what kind of infrastructure is being used. Okay, so if your customer is that way, we can kind of help them to convince. If they need to have a certain brand of hardware, we can provide that. But generally, we see this objection is not coming up as much anymore. Next question.
Yep. Next question. Does Arrosoft work on customer on-premise infra?
Answer is yes. So you think about your customer as a network, right? They are a network, and they have all of that stuff inside the network. Arctic does not need to see what's inside the network, because all customers have a lot of stuff, a lot of solutions protecting inside the network. You have your firewalls, they have your anti-intrusion, you have your EDR, your antivirus. And the inside the network is the most well-protected environment today. What customers always forget is outside the network. They forget that when the attacker is coming in, they are not inside already, they are outside looking in. They are outside trying to probe you, trying to find a way in. Arctic monitors the outside. Arctic acts as your white hat hacker, constantly looking at you from the outside, finding a vulnerability, finding an unlocked port, or an updated device, so that vulnerability cannot be used against you and informs you. So it does protect what's in your network, but it does not need to run in your network. There's nothing to install in the network for Arctic security.
Okay, that's the only questions that we have for today.
Great.
Okay.
I hope you all found it useful, and I hope you found it interesting. I know that we kind of breezed through a lot of the solutions. If you're interested in any particular service or solution that you heard about today, do drop us a line.